This podcast is brought to you by New Life Ministries.
Welcome to the Every Man's Battle podcast. I'm your host, JJ West. On this podcast, you will hear honest conversation and encouragement for living a life of sexual integrity. Let's get to today's episode. Welcome back to the Every Man's Battle podcast. I am JJ West. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I also work as the presenter for the Every Man's Battle Intensive. I'm so glad to be with you in studio with Doug Barnes.
Doug Barnes here. Yes. Thanks, JJ. It's always nice to be with you. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in the Dallas area, and I've been working with the Every Man's Battle Intensive for many, many years. And I'm excited each time one rolls around because I get to freshen up on all of my things that I need for recovery. And so it's always cool to go and to be with the guys. So I'm looking forward to our talk today.
Fantastic. Yeah. So speaking of that, we are going to continue our conversation from last week. Hopefully you've already listened to episode 4, where we started the conversation, how do I measure recovery success? And there's actually a prior episode that we recorded last season where we talked about sobriety versus recovery. That might be a good resource to go back and listen to as a setup for this particular podcast. But sure, we're talking today, kind of the second half. We're continuing the conversation on how do I measure recovery success. Last week, we spent a lot of time talking about the tangible aspects. What are the tangible ways, the behaviors that we look for in terms of measuring our recovery success? But Doug, you did a good job of delineating that there's really 2 categories. There's the tangible, but then there's this intangible. There's this piece that is about my character. It's about my heart. It's not just about my behavior. And we want to dive deeper into that aspect today.
Yes. And I'm so excited about this part because it's the one that really speaks to the ongoing process of recovery, right? Because those are the things we can't see or can't taste or can't touch. This is the change inside of us that really goes to our relational recovery, because we have a recovery from our behaviors, and our getting into these intangibles now focus on repairing a lot of the relational damage that our behaviors have caused. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you shared a formula last week that I know you shared in the past as well, but it's such a great way of describing how both of those things need to come together. Can you share with the audience that formula once again for what good recovery looks like?
Absolutely. So units of time, a long period of time, not next week or next month. And for some of us, not next year, but time in and of itself. Time plus believable trust building behaviors, which are the tangibles we talked about, plus the sanctification of my character. So time plus believable trust-building behaviors plus the sanctification of my character. That is just a simple equation of good recovery. And it changes no matter where we are, whether we have just been discovered, that D-Day time, if we're in early recovery or mid-recovery, it changes because what I need to be doing to grow and change my heart will change along the way. And that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you can't pick and choose. You can't say, well, I'm just going to do a bunch of behaviors and work on my character and I'll be done in 6 weeks. No, that throws out the time. Or I'm just going to spend a lot of time on this and I'm going to work on behavior, but I don't really need to address character issues. No, that's also not good recovery. So we have to have all 3 of those components working together to bring about good recovery.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's dive in here. I'm going to briefly just review the tangibles that we talked about. We talked about the battle plan that we get at the intensive, step work, books, podcasts, webinars, getting in with a good therapist or a coach or clinician, could be a pastor, could be a minister, could be anyone in that authority, coaching, even groups that focus on integrity recovery. Okay, those are good. And one-on-one accountability. Those are some of the categories that we picked on last time.
Correct.
And so transitioning that, because we need to be careful about focusing on just the performance. Look at what I did. When is this going to be over? And so it's not about our performance. And that's what we're talking about today. What are some of the intangible ways to measure our recovery? And so at the intensive, we talk about this a lot. That one of the biggest indicators is, how well do I understand my emotions? Now,
Correct.
Notice how I didn't say what I think about my emotions. Because when I think about my emotions, it's still a thought.
Correct.
When I talk about my emotions, what am I experiencing internally?
Yes.
What's happening with me? Is there tightness? Is there sternness? Is there relaxedness? I mean, what's happening inside of me, predicated by my life experience around me? Because life happens all the time, and all life situations have an emotional response or reaction tied to it.
Yes.
And so just because we're not in a situation and say, oh, well, I think I'm feeling a little bit agitated right now. A lot of times we just go through our life and blow past the awareness of, how did this situation, this meeting, this encounter, this talk, this whatever, how did that affect me?
Correct. What feeling, what emotion did it evoke in me? And how intensely am I feeling that emotion, right? Because once I've done that, then I can start to look at, what is my likely behavioral response when that emotion arises in me? And do I have a choice on what I do in response to what I'm feeling, or am I just on autopilot?
Yes. And to piggyback on that, a lot of times, well, again, myself included, but a lot of us, we see emotions like a foreign language.
Right.
I tell guys in my group at EMB, and I in my office, I'll say, we're going to learn how to speak some Japanese phrases. I feel blank. and here's a list. And so find out which one gets as close as it can. There may be 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, doesn't matter. What is the emotion that's going on with me? So the first thing about this intangible, about understanding our emotions, is awareness. Am I aware of what I'm experiencing? Because when I'm aware of what I'm experiencing, I'm getting present in this moment with my emotion, myself.
That's right. I'm connecting
So it's not
self.
just about what I know. Yes, right. And there's a formula that we talk about at the intensive that we'll talk about here in just a minute. So connecting with myself, I can't be present with those people I love the most. I can't be present with them if I'm not present with me.
That's
I
correct.
can think about it, but that doesn't make me experience it.
Correct. Yeah, because so often we ask this question right at the intensive. How many times has your wife, girlfriend, significant other, spouse, fiance, it may be parent, maybe sibling, maybe best friend, asked you something along the lines of, tell me what you're feeling. And you stare blankly back at them, good, fine, tired. No, those don't count. Those aren't emotions, right? Because I can't share what I'm feeling with you if I'm not aware of what I'm feeling inside.
Right. And so we spend a lot of time walking through and really trying to be aware of, what is the emotion I'm experiencing right now, because it gets us in that practice. And so it's about practicing that many times on a daily basis, because all life situations have an emotional response or reaction tied to it. And so if I'm not aware of it, I might not be able to react or respond appropriately and healthily for me, that could help me grow in my character and in my trust building behaviors. So it's really
Doug,
pivotal.
I can hear the guys now, the guys who they were raised in a family where their dad never showed any emotion except for anger. Maybe he got excited about his favorite sports team, but usually it was just anger. And anytime this kid growing up showed emotion, he was ridiculed, belittled, told to stop crying, told to, wipe those tears away, rub some dirt on it, move on. And so isn't this kind of just, the woke generation, the namby-pamby, we got to get in touch with our feelings. Can't I just be a man? How do we respond to a guy like that?
Yeah, my response to that is that the God of the universe, the God that created me before I was ever aware of what life was, the God that created me experienced, both in Old Testament and New Testament, he experienced emotions, and he showed those emotions outwardly,
Yes.
not just where he cowered in a cave and didn't, no, he showed emotion so that he is our model, both in the Old Testament and New Testament, how God showed that with the children of Israel and the Israelites, in the New Testament with Jesus, and how he expressed what was going on inside of him. So they're inside of us.
Yes.
Now, because they haven't been, what do you call it, appreciated throughout my life and my family. Okay.
Appreciated, allowed, cultivated. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wasn't going to go there, but yes, absolutely. Yeah. So if that is the case, and if that is anyone here that's watching this and listening to this, you know what? That's okay. And good recovery, again, we're not looking how to just manage them. I don't want to stuff them. I don't want to just, there are some things that we do that we push ourselves away and go, oh, that's too scary. Or when someone gets a little loud, it's like, whoa, okay, whoa, what's happening here? I'm this reminds me of home, and no, that's bad.
Yeah.
Being able to accept that. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking about, we had a guy at a workshop, this was a few months ago, and you know how we always make that transition, because day one, we do a lot of emotions work and we do a lot on shame messaging. And then day two, we kind of shift the conversation to a more practical, tangible, if you will, like we did last episode. We shift the conversation to more of that. And we had one guy go, thank God we can get rid of all of that emotional stuff. He was so excited that we were just gonna focus on the tangible, practical, behavioral stuff, and we weren't gonna have to talk about all those blankety blank emotions. And I said to him, yes, but if we lose sight, if we just put away all of those blankety blank emotions, we never realize how those emotions are driving so much of the behaviors that we want to get rid of. And so we have to do both, right? So yeah, if I'm not aware, if I'm not paying attention, if I'm not digging into what's going on in here, it's going to drive the ship, and I'm unaware of it. And I think I'm just broken. Yeah.
Well, and you tied it together. There's a correlation between our acting out behavior and what's happening on the inside of us. And a lot of times we don't appreciate that very much, because the behaviors are what everyone sees. No one sees inside my heart, right? No one can see that. And so there, if I come to the point of saying, yes, I'm doing these behaviors, whatever they are, to medicate myself, by definition, I'm changing the way I feel. And there's an indicator of, I'm not aware of what I feel, but I know that it changes it, because I feel what we said, good, fine, tired. I feel peace. I feel loved. I feel whatever, even though it's a false sense. I change the way I feel. Well, by definition, again, what am I changing? Why do I want to feel better? Well, because something negative is happening inside of me, and I don't like that. I got to change that. And for a lot of us, we learn how to do that early in life. Yeah.
And the flip side is, even though nobody can climb inside my heart and see what I'm feeling inside, they can see my behaviors. What they can experience is when I'm closed off from them, when I'm not sharing my emotions with them. They can experience that. So whether that's a spouse, a fiance, a parent, a sibling, a friend, they experience, man, JJ doesn't share anything with me. Yeah, like I see his behaviors, but I don't feel connected to him. I don't feel close to him. I don't feel like I know him, because he doesn't share what's going on inside.
Yeah. Who is this person sleeping next to me, or sitting next to me, or across from me on the table, right? Who is this person?
Yeah.
not just
So good.
what do they do?
Yeah. So good recovery work, some of the intangible is, do the people around me know? So first starts with, am I aware of what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing? And do the people around me know me? Do the people around me, if I polled, 10 people in my life and said, how well do you think you know me? Do I share openly with you? How would they answer that question?
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. To know and be known by. That's good.
Yes.
That's part of that recovery process, right? To know those that we say we love the most, and to be known by them, not
Mhm.
not knowledge wise, not what they do, but who they are,
Yeah,
and that reciprocated relationship, that reciprocation.
absolutely.
The Restore Intensive is designed for a woman dealing with a man's sexual addiction issues.
Restore gave me strength. I met up with a group of women that are going through things that they had no control over.
If you've been affected by betrayal, an emotional or physical affair, or pornography, the Restore Intensive will equip you with support and tools to help you through, and it's coming to a city near you. To register, to find out more, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE or online at newlife.com.
What are some of these other intangibles?
Okay, yeah. So knowledge of my emotions, not just the thought of it, but able to experience my emotions and be able to talk about those. Moving on. My wounds. Do I know how I was wounded? Now, before we get into, well, I had June and Ward Cleaver for my parents, and Cliff and Claire Huxtable and Ozzie and Harriet, or whoever we want to idolize. A great mind once said, "No one leaves childhood unscarred."
That's right.
And so it's having the courage to dig into myself and say, where are those wounded places inside of me?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Where are those? And again, this may come from a help with a clinician who is experienced in looking for those and fleshing those out. And it's about really being honest with ourselves that, there are wounds in there. They don't have to be criminal. They don't have to be, where someone goes to jail for it. It could be something that has affected me in a very negative way. That could be wounding. And we talk about, the 3 I's at our intensive: incompetence, insignificance, and impotence, or powerlessness.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times that's what fuels when things aren't going well relational. A lot of times that's part of our limbic system. And when my limbic system fires up, my prefrontal cortex, the one that says, "Hey, don't say that. That's rude. That's horrible. No, that's nasty. That's offensive. That's whatever." That part of my brain goes offline. So when my limbic system fires up, that's part of my survival brain. And when I want to survive, I get down into that wounded place because I'm seeking safety. Well, what am I seeking safety from? Mm-hmm. And that's what we need to work on.
Yeah. So I got to do that. I got to do that work of unpacking. And sometimes, most of the time, the wounds do come from family of origin, mom and dad or grandparents.
Most
whatever.
of the time.
But sometimes the wounds come from the teacher that picked on you, the scout leader, the coach, whatever. Like it can come from lots of different places, but we often do need help in beginning to unpack those wounds. Yeah, we start to do it at the intensive, but to do it ongoing, you really do want to be in good therapy, which ties back to one of the tangibles from last week. I need to be in good therapy to then help me with this intangible of understanding my wounds.
Right. So how we handle those, and handle is not the right word, how we manage when I feel wounded, when I feel insignificant, when I feel like I'll never measure up, or I'm inadequate, or I'm a loser, or I'm stupid, or I'm dumb, I'll never get it right. How can I be perfect? Those shame messages, when those show up, how do I manage those? And to manage them in healthy ways And again, I think that's deeper, a lot deeper work with a lot of clinicians.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, moving on. I've got a couple
Mm-hmm.
more here. I'll go through them pretty quickly. Triggers.
Okay.
In my recovery, I'm going to get triggered.
Mm-hmm.
We all are.
Wait,
So
what? I thought once I start recovery, I never deal with this again.
Yes. And we get triggered. All of us.
Yes. Yeah.
All of us
Correct.
get triggered because we're human. And a trigger is something from the past that comes right up to me in the present, and it seems like it's happening.
Right.
And those spouses, those girlfriends, significant others, those family members, sometimes our home team and home groups, those around us, sometimes they get triggered, and we don't know exactly what to do or what to say.
Sometimes their triggering is our trigger.
Correct. And how we handle that and process that inside of us, then help them process with them. Yes. That again points toward good recovery.
Yeah. Can I sit in that painful place with you when you've been triggered, and your trigger is triggering me, and I want to run away because I feel incompetent, I feel overwhelmed. But can I sit with you in that pain? I'm aware that I'm being triggered, but I'm also aware that that trigger doesn't have control of me. It doesn't dictate what I do, right? My feelings inform me. They don't control me.
Yes. And I think what you just said, they inform me, they don't control me. I think that's a concept that gets a little bit further into recovery with my understanding of the first two that we've talked about, the wounds and awareness of my emotions, right? Because right now I'm going to defend. When I feel like I'm being attacked, I'm going to seek safety, and I'm going to defend myself, even though I know the right thing to do is to sit in this pain. Well, but the horrible things that they're saying is, oh my gosh, that's too much. I can't handle that. So then I seek safety, and here we are in this dance.
Yeah.
And it's not very healthy.
So how I adjust from that is I say, okay, I'm aware of that wound, but I'm also aware that God is my shield and my defender. I don't have to defend myself. I'm aware that God is my strength. I'm aware that God allows me then to move in, even though I'm wounded and this is painful, I can move into that painful place with you to be an agent of your healing, right? Because God is with me, because he's given me everything I need. I don't now need you to behave a certain way in order for me to stay in relationship with you. I need you to never be triggered. I need you to never be upset. And then you're a safe person for me. No, instead, I'm going to focus on being a safe person for you, being a help to you. And that's by, I've got to be aware of what those wounds are and inviting God to bring healing, but also inviting God to be my strength and my shield when I'm experiencing those wounds and not run away.
Right. Yeah. And that
good.
Then is a segue into the last one here, which is what are my emotional needs? What do I need when that process that you just described is taking place, and I'm looking for, oh my gosh, the sky's about to fall. What do I do? Oh, wait a second. What do I need? What do I need? Because if we're going to be in that space with them, I need to be able to understand what I need so that I can put that aside for just a little bit and be in the present moment with them. Again, going back to what are the emotions I'm experiencing? Is there a wound that's opened up in me? If so, okay, but can I lay that aside to be in the present moment with you and talk through that and process that? And then I take my stuff, here it goes, to God, self, and others. I go to God first, I connect with myself second, and then I take it horizontally with my brothers and really talk about, hey, this is what was happening. This is what it sounded like. This is what I felt like. This is the need that was there that I have, and seek the need through healthy, godly brothers.
Right.
Who can
meet that legitimate need in legitimate ways.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Oh man, Doug, I know it's not an exhaustive list, but it's a super helpful list of how do I start to measure some of the intangible aspects of my recovery, to be aware of my emotions, to be aware of my wounds, to be aware of the how I interact with others, and recognizing, okay, what is it that I need in order to be fully present with this person, right? What do I need from God? What do I need from my own self, my own strength, but also what do I need from my brothers in order to continue on this path of recovery, or in this moment to be available to this other person who has a need as
Right.
well. Man,
Right.
I mean, I just love that. I
Right.
think it really gives us some very, very practical ways of examining, okay, am I actually doing good recovery, or am I just focused on behavior, or am I just running away from recovery completely because it's too overwhelming, right?
Right. Right. Each one of these, we could dive down deeper. I mean, this is,
Oh
like
yeah,
you said, it's not an exhaustive list.
right.
And this is part of the work. This is part of that character work and building those trust
Yeah.
building behaviors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This, it reminds me of the Mandalorian, right? This is the way. This is the way. This if we
This
had,
is the way.
you know,
That's right.
our group with us, right? They would be saying, this is the way. This is the way recovery works. And we can't short circuit it. I can't make it too fast. I've got to give it the time that it needs. I can't just focus on outward behaviors. I have to focus on my character, but I also can't just focus on, well, I'm inside, I'm changing. You don't see any of it. there's no outward behavior that's happening, no outward change, but inside, I mean, I'm just doing great work, right? No, I have to have all three of those components working together so that I'm experiencing good recovery, but also the people in my life, the important people in my life, are experiencing me doing good recovery.
Right. Right.
So,
I had a guy in one of my groups. Last thing, I had a guy in one of my groups say,
yeah,
it's not about religion, it's about relationship.
correct.
And I thought that just encapsulated, all of what we've talked about this episode and last episode. It's really about
Without a doubt.
relationships. Yeah.
It
The love
really
and
is.
relationships.
It really is.
Yeah.
You might be listening saying, wow, that sounds overwhelming to me. I honestly don't even know what most of what you just said means, because I have been so inward focused my entire life. I've never had the language, the vocabulary to talk about my emotions, to even take the time to identify. If that's you, can I invite you to do some hard things? Sign up for the Everyman's Battle Intensive so that you start to get a language for some of these things, a vocabulary for some of these things. And you learn what it looks like to live in authentic relationship with other good, safe men. You maybe have never had that opportunity before in your life. And if that's the case, I would invite you to take that step. It's a scary step. It's hard, but I would invite you to take that step. We give a discount to all our listeners for the Everyman Battle Intensive. Get $50 off your registration if you use the code EMBPOD, EMB Pod. But take that step. Take the step of asking the people in your life. You remember I said, what if we polled like 10 people in our life and said, what's it like to be in relationship with me? Do you know me? Do I feel open to you? Maybe you start there. Maybe you don't do 10. Let's start with 3. Just pick 3 people in your life and say, do you feel like you know me? Do you feel like I share openly with you or not? And listen to their responses and don't write it off. But take a step this week to move not just into the tangible things that we talked about last week, but into some of these character issues, these intangible, where I'm digging into what's going on in my heart that is so tied to my outward behavior. Listen, thanks for listening, guys. We're so glad that you're along for this journey. We hope that we are providing some helpful information some helpful dialogue to get you thinking about these different aspects of recovery. We're so glad that you're with us. Next week, we are going to talk about what brings about repentance. What actually makes repentance happen? So I'm looking forward to that topic. Doug, as always, so great to be with you.
It's always a pleasure, JJ. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening. This podcast is just one of the many ways we can encourage and help you. If you're looking for more help, visit us at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Please remember to review, like, and share the podcast as it helps others find us. If you have a comment about this podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line at embpodcast@newlife.com. See you next week.